Good day, everyone. Now 2.5 days into the government shutdown and counting, and there has been some significant movement on Capitol Hill just in the past few minutes to tell you about a vote by the U.S. Senate to fund the government, to reopen the government for about 3 weeks, and an understanding on how to move forward on immigration and other key issues. This follows a morning of intense backroom discussions by both Republicans and Democrats, along with plenty of public posturing about who is to blame for all of this. We should note also the House will still need to vote for things to actually move forward. A House vote could happen within the hour after the Senate votes. For the very latest on where things stand right now, let's go to NBC's Casey Hunt. She's up on Capitol Hill, where she's been pretty much all weekend long. Casey, what in the end is the mechanism by which they now are able to open the federal government again?
Well, Kate, as you point out, Democratic votes have poured in for this temporary spending measure. And forgive me if I'm looking over my shoulder. I'm going to stick with you here. That's Senator Shelby, Republican from Alabama. I'm waiting to see if Senator Lindsey Graham comes through this hallway, and we'll try to grab him. He's been instrumental in trying to get this deal done. But essentially what's happened is Democrats have had a change of heart, and it happened throughout the course of intense bipartisan negotiations behind closed doors this morning on Capitol Hill. When we arrived this morning, we thought it was likely that we were potentially looking at day 4 of a government shutdown. And here we are with this overwhelming number of Democrats voting to support this temporary spending bill. Now, what did they get for it? Democrats say that they're comfortable now with a commitment that they have from Senator Mitch McConnell that he will put an immigration bill on the floor to address that problem that dreamers are facing come March 5th. They will lose their status if Congress doesn't act. That potentially means being ripped away from their families, losing their jobs. Democrats say they now have a commitment from the majority leader to put a neutral bill on the Senate floor, so a bill that they may be able to support, that they will be able to offer amendments to make changes to that legislation, and that the Senate will move forward on that regardless of what President Trump decides to say about it. And that, of course, has been the sticking point and the real problem with getting any clarity on what has happened here. The president initially seemed open to a major deal. He met with Chuck Schumer on Friday. They had cheeseburgers. They seemed to have the outlines of a deal. And then, of course, it all fell apart when right-wing members of the White House staff, as how many senators have described it, apparently changed the president's mind. And that is why this government has been shut down over the weekend. So there are still a lot of twists and turns here for people who rely on that DACA program. There are, of course, big questions about whether any immigration bill that were to pass the Senate could pass the House of Representatives. There's a right-wing group in the House of Representatives that typically has had a lot of problems with immigration bills generally, and a major immigration overhaul was passed in the Senate several years ago, never put on the House floor. So we do have a lot ahead of us here, but it does look as though this shutdown, at least, will come to an end later on today. Kate.
And Casey, just to reemphasize the headline once again, this is all because the Republican leader is promising something, right? That's essentially what you're saying.
That's right. He had said on the floor that he intends to put this bill forward. That was not quite enough for some Democrats, but we're hearing that there were Republicans behind closed doors in the meeting earlier this morning that made commitments to Democrats that they would hold their leader's feet to the fire and make sure that he follows through on this commitment, Kate.
All right, Casey Hunt on Capitol Hill. Let's turn over to our chief White House correspondent now, Hallie Jackson, who's been talking to administration officials. Yeah. Interesting that the Democratic leader, Chuck Schumer, said on the floor a few moments ago that he hasn't really heard from the president all weekend long. Where is the president in all this?
Well, he's here at the White House, Kate, but he has certainly not been seen publicly, really, since this shutdown started, other than in a couple of photos that were released by the White House. Although reporters who typically cover the president were not invited in to capture those moments. Chuck Schumer said the president did not talk to Democrats because the president has not spoken with Democrats since the shutdown began. His administration, his top aides have told me that's pretty intentional, that the president is interested in talking about immigration, but after the government is reopened. You also heard Chuck Schumer take a dig at Donald Trump, calling him the great deal-making president who sat on the sidelines. And I will tell you, Kate, having been here all weekend, we did not see the president come out of either the residence or the West Wing, where he has spent the last 3 days since this shutdown started. As far as reaction now, and as far as whether that changes, It obviously could. We may see the president, for example, after the House votes, he may decide to come out and make a public statement looking at where things go from here and trying to provide some of the clarity that Casey talked about that lawmakers, particularly on the Democratic side, are looking for. But bottom line reaction from a senior administration official that I just got off the phone with, Kate, about time, this person says, the Democrats relented, not painting this as a win for the White House, but as a loss for the other side of the aisle. Kate.
Hallie Jackson at the White House. Thank you. We will, of course, be following all of this throughout the day. And tonight, Nightly News will have the latest for you, along with Lester Holt reporting tonight from inside North Korea. For now, I'm Kate Snow.